I'd like to go a bit further on the subject of the quality of samadhi and the need to transcend thought in meditation and having thoughts in meditation and so forth. Well, also to elicit possibility to receive some specific instruction to increase the quality of meditation. So, well, my overall experience in the last maybe 6 months is that there's that it's relatively straightforward to achieve absorption. I seem to find it easier instead of really focusing on the gross or even the subtle breath, to bring my attention to the subtle movement of prana, and when I bring my attention there, it's relatively straightforward to reverse the flow of prana, not being oozed out of the senses, but like having this experience of, and then absorption is happening, and then overall there's the state of, well, what I experience or what I understand as Salvikalpa Samadhi, but I think rather on a superficial level, in the sense that what I, for example, in the meditation this morning clearly experienced is that there is still quite a bit of presence of thoughts. It's not that I am thinking in the sense of being identified or lost in the thinking, but nevertheless there's a lot of thoughts happening, let's say. And you used earlier on the analogy of the train with the wagons, and in some cases, as this morning, I'm not just witnessing trains, but I'm actually in a train station where there is a lot of platforms and trains coming in and out, and on top of being, and while being in a train station, there's also the guy behind the microphone who is announcing the trains and commenting on the trains. So there's that second level of, but I'm still witnessing that. So it's not that I sense, I don't fall into being behind the microphone, but there's a lot of that going on, and this of course keeps me away from the more qualitative samadhi. And so I would love to hear your comments on that, and also maybe to receive some instruction how to go about this, so that I can rather be outside of the train station when I choose to.
The answer is simple. Don't worry. Be happy. So don't worry too much about this. Don't worry about samadhi. Don't about chasing samadhi. Don't even worry about, like, am I in the samadhi, which is, this is so. All this can then be incorporated into still kind of having certain presence of thought, but now with the pretense that somehow it opens the doors to deeper samadhi. So don't worry about this, really. In this case, in what you're speaking of and what your experience is. Remain in the naturalness of that. Remain in the spontaneity of that. It's very natural when there is a presence of thoughts, because that's what this is. Small little hints are always given so as not to suddenly fall into that temptation, fall to the temptation, or fall into the trap of how thoughts may become subtler, and we spoke about that yesterday. How we can just move to another level of realm of thinking. At each time you feel there is this deeper falling, opens up, use that. Whatever means available. Whatever means available. You see? So in other words, there are techniques, methodologies for transcendence, different way of meditating. But when it comes to the actual experience, then you need to develop your own unique way of how you go about this. And the only reliance there is the steady development of intuition. Intuition, which is the property of buddhi, not of manas. So that there is this intuitive insight. Then if you're not sure, you bring it out into the open, just to verify, am I dreaming, am I imagining? Only if you have doubts about this. So this intuitive insight is really what creates these possibilities for working within the given field, because samadhi is a natural state. Like what we just discussed just prior to this break, what we talked about, there is a possibility to somehow start building some conceptual understanding of, unity, and how this samadhi, that samadhi. It could be a subject of study. One goes and learns this, understands what kind of samadhis, higher states of consciousness. But all this has to sit in relation to your own experience. In your own experience, you have to always, the only barometer and the checkpoint is your own experience, is where you are at it. So the understanding here that drives the process also is that samadhi is always there and unity is always there. Unity is never lost. So therefore unity is not gained either. Samadhi is not gained. It's not gained. Conditions are given and it rises on its own. A situational setup, given and it rises on its own. Consciousness is active, then it discards that, it will rise whenever it wants to. Your life is busy now, as a householder, you have a lot to take care of, a lot to tend to, so your day is kind of packed, right? So maybe there is not enough of that wondering where that can kick in unexpectedly. But when you are giving yourself to practice, when you're giving yourself to sittings, right? So let the spontaneity of the process brings about this intuitive guidance, intuitive insight. Yes, you said you don't even need to focus on the breath, on gross or subtle, and you work with movement of prana. Not sure what you meant by reversing the flow of prana, but when these changes begin to happen in breathing. The most significant things happen on the suspension of breath, or the king of all pranayamas is where the breath neither comes out nor goes in, right? It's equilibrated. This is an ideal situation because the breath is in sushumna fully. So there is nothing to worry about. This is already accompanied by samadhi, one of the samadhis. If it is still has the presence of vikalpa, some vibration, then that should not be a worry, because if you start introducing anything, or how can I completely reduce the thinking, you only increase the thinking. You see? The only way of working with thought-free state is to outsmart thought by not giving it any attention. Not giving it attention, not completing it. In the day-to-day interactions, in the waking state of consciousness, you have to complete the sentence. Otherwise, people will be like, what do you mean by that? And finish what you were saying. But when you're left on your own, you don't need to complete the sentence. You're not entitled. Leave them uncompleted. Therefore, example is given, cloud passing. Don't start looking into the cloud and seeing dragon or elephant or monkey. Because in no time, imagination will make that shape into something that we recognize. Keep it at an abstract level and watch what happens. Then it dissolves further. Doesn't matter what appears, don't pay attention to it too much. Don't complete the picture. Don't finish the sentences. So therefore, remain in that spontaneity, in that innocence, and the intuitive insight will be plenty. It will rise and give this affirmation, and and confirmation. So you know already, you've experienced that, you know when meditations are, when you come out of it, it's just like, this is why I said, don't worry, be happy. Really, that's all there is. Don't worry, you can start with worry less. And then be happy. Happy more. So that's all really. You know? Keep it simple, very simple.